Yes, 1, 2, 3. G'day, I'm Jack Robertson. You'll start to see me appearing on leaflets around Balmain and Annandale, Lilyfield the next couple of weeks. We're 5 weeks out. It's a bit of a quick spiel on why I'm running. And those of you who've been following my site will know where I come from, largely. Why would I be running? I'm a bit of a nobody, no political background. Okay, a couple of broad reasons. First one, I won't dwell on too long because it's a bit negative, right? Short answer, we have 3 councillors in this ward. The current combination, Labor Party, Greens, John Stamlis, the Independent, the last couple of years haven't been able to work together. Darcy Byrne, Rochelle Porteous, John Stamlis, dysfunctional, right? They just can't work together. Don't really care who's to blame. I've got my own views on things. Now the Greens, Rochelle is retiring. She's the mayor at the moment. She's retiring. New candidate, Kobe Shetty. Had a coffee with it. Seems lovely. I know all 3 of the 3. I know Darcy. I've met John a few times, and I think I voted for him when he first stood. They're all decent people, right? And there's lots in each of the platforms. I've got a lot in common with the Labor Party, or the old Labor Party. I've got plenty in common with the Greens in terms of energy policy and sustainability. That's what I do. I'm a fair bit of my professional life for the last few years, so there's heaps I can agree with on the Greens, plenty I can disagree with, especially in the New South Wales Greens. Some of their more identity politics driven stuff, the ideological stuff, that's where they tend to lose me. And John's a local bloke, right? He's a statistician. I'm a bit of a policy nerd myself. I did public policy work. I'm not quite an expert on stats like John, but I know where the ABS website is too, so I can do that. So look, I'm sure, and all 3 of them have done some terrific things. That's Rochelle, and I'm sure Kobe will too, or would too. So it's not so much that I've got anything against any of the parties, really, or any of the individuals, certainly. Clearly, if anyone who's been watching council politics for the last few years, they just can't work together, right? So if we re-elect the same 3, we're probably going to be committed to the same old feuding and nastiness and dysfunction. And it's important to remember for us here in this ward, I think, having watched every council election for the last 8 months, we shoulder a fair bit of the blame for some of the wider dysfunction. I think the nonsense between the Greens and the ALP over referring Darcy to the CAT, I think a lot of the stuff on demerging, the de-amalgamation, the futile de-amalgamation campaign, John Stamlis has been driving that, and we're committed to a referendum. Pointless. So I think, a lot of that is due to our little part. I'm sure other councillors too. The Greens play games over in Marrickville, and obviously Councillor Passas in Ashfield, she's made it hard for the council to run. It doesn't matter why or who's to blame. End up with the same 3 councillors, you're going to end up risking another couple of years of dysfunction, and we just can't afford that. So I'm saying, look, I know I can work with all 3 of those, any combination of 2. Time for a new face and a new forward-looking and upbeat and enthusiastic addition to the mix, which brings me to the main reason I'm running. And it's positive and it's upbeat, because that's the sort of guy I am, right? I get on with most people. I like fun, joy. I think it should be all about making our community as happy and as content and inclusive a place as we can, especially for our kids. Even if you haven't got kids of your own, or you hate kids, for our kids and our dogs and our cats. Vote me, I want everyone to be included. This is an amazing time coming out of COVID. It's been a grim couple of years for our kids especially. I've got a 15-year-old boy. At that age, 2 years out of your life, shut inside, away from your friends, away from extended family, away from all the things you love to do, most of them, that seems like an eternity. We're coming out of that now. So it's up to us to be joyous and upbeat and forward-looking. Small business has been flat chat, right? Absolutely under the pump. So we really need to get that cranked up. Pubs, clubs, cafes, all of the social things we love to do. Big part of my Make Balmain Fun campaign and motivation is based on my, last 20 years as a musician around here, playing all the pubs. Music's a huge part of my life. I'm part of a local band called the Grateful Dads, played every pub around probably, and had played the Wally, until it was the renovation started. That's one of the things that sort of got me to step up, because the pub culture is changing too. The pubs have been under threat, so that idea of getting out and about and mixing as a community, to go to a pub and drink, restaurants, cafes, parks, sporting groups, whatever, that to me is an important part of what holds us together as a civic society, and that's been really, hit hard by COVID, and that's reminded us of just how important it is just to get out and do stuff. So that's what I do. I love getting out and doing stuff. The other component about being upbeat is that there is a shit ton, I wasn't going to swear, but that's who I am, a shit ton of stuff coming up in our ward, but the whole of the council over the next 10 years. Bays West Precinct, there's obviously lots going on at Rozelle Railway Yards with WestConnex. Cullen Park's under the pump again, and something's got to happen there. The Tigers site is still empty, and that's a standing insult, right? That's an absolute, to everyone who's lived in this area for a long time. I've been here 22 years, originally from Victoria, so I'm not going to pretend I'm old Balmain. But Balmain's one of the founding footy clubs. First game of rugby league played down at Birdsgrove Oval down here. We don't have a Tiger, we don't have a club. It's merged with Ashfield now, so that's that. That to me is that's a kind of a litmus test. That's an indication of just how much council politics has become disconnected from the people in the community. There's lots of, council does lots of good things, lots of activist sort of stuff, but it's shifted towards maybe sexual interests a bit, people who want to start pushing, no racism signs or LGBT pride centre stuff. All of these things are good. Maybe just our representation has left a few people behind. So that's another part of, what I'm standing for, but particularly on the infrastructure stuff. If we don't get on the front foot with things like Bays West, and in other parts of the council, the Marrickville precinct, the Parramatta Road corridor, some of the other big, development stuff going on, we're going to get shut out, as we have been with WestConnex and as we risk being with other infrastructure stuff like Cullen Park, right? So I'm upbeat and positive about the role that development and these big projects can play as well, and that's unusual for here. Around here, most politics is towards the left, and people tend to be anti-development, or at least give that impression. I think actually we're in a moment now, coming out of COVID again, where the state government's spending a ton of money, right, around here and everywhere else, but a ton of money. So there's great opportunities for us to seize a project like West Harbour Tunnel, Bays West Precinct, Cullen Park even, and say, righto, we won't be knee-jerk anti-development. We will make sure we're inside the tent and we get the outcomes for us that we want. There's a whole load of things going on, particularly in sustainability and energy transition, and local councils can play a big part in that. Politically, I don't want to make this too long. Politically, look, I'm a swing voter, I guess. I've voted for pretty much every party at various times over the course of my 30-odd years. I'm 56. I think first time I voted was for the National Party, my dad. But, a good National Party candidate in a rural seat can be a great member, no less than a Liberal Party candidate or a Labor Party candidate or a Greens Party candidate. So I voted for all sorts of different people. Last state elections, I actually put the local Liberal Party council ahead of Labor and the Greens. Generally, I'll vote sort of Labor-ish with the Greens in some sort of upper house capacity, not always. But on that occasion, I thought the Berejiklian government was more competent. I think Kayla Manane had just taken another big bag of cash from the Chinese, so Labor Party, I'm not going to vote for you if you're a bunch of, if you haven't learned from Eddie Obeid. And that applies to everyone. Right? So politically, I swing all over the place. Voted federally, I voted for Shorten, I think, for last federal. Ask me which way I vote, and I'll tell you. Some people have said I'm a Labor Party stooge. No. Preferences will come into it. I don't know. The candidates get announced next Thursday. I'm presuming the Greens, John Samuels will probably go with the Greens. He's backed them and backed the mayoral kind of push and so forth. So from a pragmatic point of view, and I'm a bit more of a comfortable set with, broadly, with Labor, where Labor sits. But I'll be throwing rocks at Darcy bloody Byrne the whole campaign, I can tell you, because he's you don't make deals with the Liberal Party, you clown. And same applies for the Greens. Rochelle was on the phone to, Julie Passow's first thing to stitch up the Merrill. I mean, I'm an independent, but listen, it's pragmatic, right? You've got to be realistic. I would like to be elected, and I'd be really good. I think I'd be good. I'm a hard worker. I've got good experience right across the board in terms of being on, committees and executive teams. I know my way around state politics and council mechanisms. I'm into energy policy. Go and have a look at my CV. But I've also worked locally as a community bus driver, as an aged and disability carer locally for 8 years. Washed dishes in the Wally for a couple of years, delivered everyone's newspapers around here at Birchgrove. So I've done labouring work, I've done, film and artsy extra sort of playwright work down at the Writers' Centre. A bit of a mixed bag. You can have a look at my CV. Talk a bit more about it in another video just so people know who I am. So I'd be a hard worker. I work a couple of days a week as an energy consultant. I've got, a few other little irons in the fire. I live pretty simply, so you'd get your money's worth if you gave me a shot at councillor for 4 years. I don't have ambitions politically. My dad used to say, you send someone to Canberra, you drag him to Canberra kicking and screaming and tell him if they do a good job for 3 years they can come home. That'd be me. I'd jump in for 4 years, have a go, push some of the harder stuff we have to do. There's some political decisions we need to make about parking and about residential development, some of these big projects, which, are going to need someone to stand up and say some things that won't always be popular. And I'm happy to do that, because put me in for 4 years, that's all I want. And I think as an independent, that's what you should be doing. You should be pushing the parties, push the Labor Party, push the Greens, come on, poke them with a stick, and that can make them better. There is a lot of talk in this election about getting parties out of local politics. I'm sympathetic to that. John's good. John Stamlis is pretty big on this, and I'm sympathetic to it. Of all the levels of politics, parties should have the least to do with local politics, because it ought to be about local problem solving. Rates, roads, rubbish, DOs, dog poo, parks, paths, pools, that sort of stuff. On the other hand, right, there's advantages for a bigger council like ours to have party representation, particularly parties of government or parties that have influence in government. They're right there. I'm not anti-party as such. Again, it's a matter of being pragmatic about these things. I'm interested in problem solving. I'm interested in getting everyone inside the tent and making sure nobody gets left behind, right? Certainly not this, my groups have done it tough, but the big bulk of people too who've maybe feeling a bit left out of the local political process, get everyone, a little happy family in the village, and then just have fun. Life's supposed to be fun, right? And we need it coming out of COVID. So I'll be upbeat, I'll be positive. You'll see me around the place in my horrible orange shirt. I'm not very photogenic. I kind of look like a prison thing, doesn't it? But all the other colours are taken. John's got a bit of orange, but he's mostly grey, so I hope he's all right with that. I'll do my best to get out there. The election campaign's going to be a bit funny. Obviously, there's restrictions. Won't be able to hand out how to vote cards. You'll be masked up. I'll try not to get in your face too much. You'll see me at the ferry stops. You'll see me at the Woolies and other places. There's a few forums coming up, and I'll try to make as much noise as I can at that. Go to my website. You can find out more about my policies. I'll be doing these videos a lot, and I'll keep me shorter than this. I'm accessible. You can find me at Charlotte's Cafe most mornings for brekkie. I live in Birchgrove, rent a little place here, beautiful, just a great place. And everyone around the community that I know feels the same way about their little patch, right? It's their home. We're blessed in the inner west. And coming out of COVID, let's just spark it up. Let's have some fun, right? And as I said at the start, I think with the current combination of councillors, for whatever reason, it's hard to have fun when the Labor Party and the Greens and John are at each other's throats. It's not much fun. There's much better things to do. So that's why I'm running. I'd like to have a go. And so vote for me. All right, thank you. Cheers.